Good evening. My name is Don Ports. I'm academic dean here at Rockford Lutheran, and I'd like to have you here tonight to talk about some really important next steps in the lives of your students. I want to mention a couple things before we get started here. We've got some people here that are helping me out with the presentation. I feel to provide some more input. And Tara Williams is here with us, who has a background in higher education herself. Spent some time working at Lincoln College, and is going to share a little bit about that institution. She also worked with Chicago Scholars, and can bring to us some information about those sorts of programs that are beneficial to a lot of our students. Claudia Consuelos is the rep from Rock Valley College that serves our students here at Rockford Lutheran. She's got information on the college, but brings a lot of other background to the table as well. So as we're going through a presentation tonight, they're going to feel free to jump in and share some things, and hopefully we'll have some time at the end for them to do a little presentation and to have a little bit of Q&A time as well. So again, we need to make sure that you get the information that's going to be most beneficial to you tonight. Before we start, let's begin with the word prayer. Heavenly Father, we are thankful that you bring us to these important crossroads in life. We thank you for the growth that you brought in the lives of our students that brings us to this point to be looking at college next year or looking at college 2 years from now. Whatever the case is, God, give us direction and wisdom as we seek to help these young people grow, to use the gifts you've blessed them with, to enable them to be everything that you've created them to be. Give us wisdom now as we help chart that path and guide that path that you've laid out for them, so that they can fulfill the destiny that you've blessed them with. In your name. Amen. Okay, so evening, there's a sign-in sheet there. Feel free to grab some handouts and have a seat. So there's a lot of different things for us to talk about tonight. Make sure you feel free to ask questions. Raise your hand if anything comes up, something that we're not covering or that you have questions about as we go through it. These are some of the things just in the broad scope of what we're going to be covering. But we want to zero in specifically, obviously, on the interests and needs and questions that you have. So feel free to mention that. We talked a lot about, why are we doing higher education, and we see not only in terms of potential earnings, but also employment, that the education of your students is an investment. It's an investment in the future. It's going to pay off for them for a long time. And I know for you as students and for you as parents, as you're working with students, sometimes it's a hard time to convince them that, that if you really work at this for another 4 years, it's going to make a difference for the next 40 years. Kids don't have a tendency of thinking 40 years down the road, and so that's a tough call for them. But that's absolutely what we're talking about here, and why that's so important. I'm going to talk briefly, and some of you might have been to some of our other presentations this fall. If you have, some of this will be familiar. We're going to move through it quickly. If you haven't, let me mention as well, we are recording the program tonight, and I'll have this PowerPoint posted on our school website as well. So if there's questions you have, don't feel like you have to take notes or anything, you'll be able to access it from the Counselor's Corner page on the school website. The video will be there along with the PowerPoint as well. But as we're talking about what colleges are looking for, we talked a lot about graduates, and what I mean by that is they're looking for students who are going to be graduates of their institution, of their college. Yes, they want a high school graduate, but they're really looking for who's that student that's going to fit our institution, that's going to really be a part of our community, part of our culture, part of our campus life, be successful there, and be a graduate in 4 years and so on. Because they don't want to bring in 8,000 freshmen and have that turn into 5,000 seniors. That doesn't work well for a lot of reasons. So they're looking for people that make the right fit, and that's what's going to be key for all of us here, what's going to be the best fit. Part of what we're looking for, colleges looking for, is grade point averages, along with what classes did you take. Those are key components now. You might have heard a lot of schools are talking about being test optional. Most schools still do require ACT or SAT. Most will accept either one. You hear a lot of hullabaloo in Illinois about SAT. The only reason for that is the fact that SAT won the state contract a couple years ago, and so ACT had a contract for 12, 15 years, whatever. SAT underbid them, they won the contract, so the whole state switched over to SAT. Doesn't mean anything other than that they were a little bit on the contract, okay? What I talk to kids about in terms of tests to take the test at your school that you're looking to go to is most familiar with. So if you're looking at most schools that are within like 1,000 miles of Rockford, it's probably going to be ACT. If you're looking at schools on the East Coast, West Coast, then SAT is going to be more familiar with those schools. But take the test that the school that you're going to is most familiar with. In some cases too, you could be looking at the test that you are personally most successful at too, which for some people is going to be the ACT, some people is going to be SAT. Partly dependent upon their ability in math. The SAT, a bigger component of that is math, whereas the ACT covers a broader range of subjects. So that sort of can be an important distinction for you too. But just as important is what sort of things do you do outside your classroom? Because as colleges are talking about who's going to be a good fit here, who's really going to be engaged in our campus, who's really going to be a part of the culture of our college, they're going to look for students who really got engaged in high school and really got engaged in the classroom and the school life of high school, because they know that that's a person who's very likely then to get really engaged in the life of a university. And those people have a tendency to fit in, to get comfortable, and to stay, and to be there for all 4 years. So that's a big part of what they're looking for. So those other aspects of your life are going to be just as important to those college applications and acceptances as well. We'll talk a little bit about pros and cons of a 2-year school. One of the biggest is going to be cost of tuition and the flexible schedule that you can have, and the transition between high school and that sort of thing. And you know, we're really blessed to have a great 2-year school here. Rock Valley is really a good junior college. They've got some great programs, and they really do serve our community and our students well. So we're really blessed in that. And for some people, some students, depending upon what it is they're interested in going into, that is the perfect solution. That is the best option for them. For others, that's absolutely not the case at all. There is no such thing as a one-size-fits-all. One of the things that I want to make sure we talk about in terms of the 2-year versus 4-year scenario is recognizing that a very small percentage of students start at Rock Valley ever end up with a 4-year degree. Now, to be fair, that's because some of them that go to Rock Valley don't need a 4-year degree. Okay, but the percentage of students that go there and eventually transferring and getting a 4-year degree is pretty small. We're talking 10% range. Okay, and some of that is just because of the fact that you go to a 4-year school and well, everybody's there to be there 4 years and end up with a 4-year degree. And so it's kind of easy to kind of ride that wave and just get caught up in the momentum. That's what we're all here for. That's what we're all going to do. 2-year institution doesn't have that kind of climate, doesn't have that kind of culture, because obviously it's much of that kind of situation. So think about that as you think about the different options that you have relative to that. Something that I'll mention particularly in reference to Rock Valley is we're talking about cost issues. A few weeks back, I went to a scholarship program down at the Norval Center downtown, put on by the library and the Northern Illinois Community Foundation. One of the presenters there was from the Rock Valley Foundation, and every year they have scholarship money that they don't give away because they don't have enough applicants. So, if that's a consideration, that definitely is a great option. Rock Valley is not that expensive to begin with, but if there are scholarship funds that are still available there, obviously that can be an ideal opportunity for a lot of people. One of the things that if you're at the junior level, and I know some of your juniors, some of your seniors at your junior level definitely should be looking at doing some college visits here soon. If you're going to visit grandma over Christmas and you got a place to stop along the way that you're interested in, that's absolutely the thing to do. If you've already visited some schools and you're just at the point of narrowing it down, sometimes some students will go back and make a second visit to like their top 2 or 3 choices and kind of help make a final determination that way. So that can be a real helpful thing to do. But think about these sorts of things as you're making those college visits, because those are some of the components that you want to be willing to consider. This one I mentioned in particular. Sometimes it's hard for us to think of getting away from home as students. Sometimes as parents, it's hard to think of our kids getting away from home and that sort of thing. I can tell you I grew up in Akron, Ohio, and the college that I attended was in Seward, Nebraska. In those days, a 55-mile-an-hour commute that was an 18-hour drive. And so my parents dropped me off in August, and I came home with can be a great part of the learning experience, so don't turn away from that. As you're visiting, these are some important things to look for. I always talk about, take a look at the personality of the school. Every school has its own culture, its own vibe that you have, and you don't really get that unless you're there and you really have an opportunity to talk to actual students and talk to people that actually teach there, that sort of thing. So take that opportunity, make those visits, do those sorts of things, because that's a huge part of really getting a feel for what that school is going to be like. One of the things that on our website, we've got a PowerPoint that's listed there that really researches the difference between public school, public universities, and private universities. It was a study that was done by a group of Lutheran colleges, but it really compares public versus private. As you're thinking about what were the things that made Rockford Lutheran important to you, what were the things that you were comfortable with about coming here and being a part of the community of Rockford Lutheran, I want you to think about that too in terms of what does that mean as I think about what the college community is going to be like that I want my student to be a part of. Because those cultures are very different. The relationships between students and the professors is typically very different. And so that's part of what comes up in the study. The whole study is posted on our school website. If you want to take a look at that, it's very helpful. But think about the intangible things that were part of why you chose Rockford Lutheran. If that's still important to you and you think that's going to be important to life of your student, think about that as you take a look at universities as well. One of the things I like to mention to people is don't think that, okay, we barely made it through Rockford Lutheran, that tuition was really burdensome, there's no way we're going to be able to afford a private university. That's just absolutely not true. There's a lot of students that I know of that are going to private universities that are paying less than what they'd be paying if they went to a public school. And that has to do with all sorts of factors. We'll get into some of that in just a little bit. But it really is doable. Don't count that out. One of the things that we'll talk about is, okay, so what do we do after we visit and we're ready to start the application process and that sort of thing. One of the things I talk with our students about, and this is a form that's over there that you can pick up, is putting together our resume, making sure we've got everything recorded in terms of what we've done, what we've been involved with, what our interests are, where we want to go, our future plans and that sort of thing. That's helpful for your student to be working on as they're making their applications and answering questions and so on. That's also a form that we use if your student needs a recommendation from a teacher. And that's one of the things I'm pretty busy with right now. I've got a lot of students coming in and saying, I need a recommendation, So you fill out the resume, bring it to me. I know a lot of our students, obviously I know our seniors really well, but I don't know what jobs everybody's had. I don't know what activities they've been involved with, what kind of volunteer work they've done, that sort of thing. So having that resume completed is really helpful to me to write a recommendation letter. It would be the same for teachers that you might write a requested recommendation from as well. Okay, so be working on those sorts of things so that you've got that asset to work from. Okay, so for seniors, as we're looking at the fall semester, we need to be finishing up the college selection process. You should be applying. Those should be going in now. A lot of schools had November 1 deadlines. A lot of schools had November 15 deadlines. Some are December 1, that sort of thing. The deadline. Some schools have what they call a rolling application process. And so they'll just accept applications as they come in, and they'll usually get back to you in a couple of weeks as to whether or not you're accepted. They'll realize that if you're not making those applications until February or March, a lot of those seats are full. And more importantly, in addition to seats being filled, all those other students that applied in November, December, and January ahead of you, they've already gotten their scholarship packages, which means that school has already set that money aside for those students that applied in October, November, December, January. Which means if they do have seats left, they don't have as much money left because they've already committed that to other students. Okay? So the financial side of it is just as important when you're thinking about the time frame when you make applications. So you absolutely should be making your applications now. We'll be taking some tests there if we need to. We'll talk about scholarship applications in a little more detail, but Fafsa is something that you should be familiar with, and if your student's a senior, you should really have already completed that and submitted that. If you need some help with that, we can help you with that here yet tonight, and I can get some other people that can help you if you have some specific questions that we can't answer. But that's really the FAFSA is the form that you fill out as a pre-application for federal student aid. virtually every university is going to say, if you want scholarship money from us, the first thing you have to do is fill out the FAFSA. It's not an onerous process. If you're familiar with the financial aid application process for Rockford Lutheran, to be honest, FAFSA is easier. Okay, and one of the reasons for that is you got an automatic way of uploading your tax information right to Fafsa, and it really is pretty slick. But that really is important that gets done. We'll talk about that a little bit more in just a second. And then the spring semester then is when the scholarship application season gets a little bit busier. Starting in December, we'll talk about some of the things that start happening right here in Rockford community that help facilitate that. But generally the way the schedule, the time frame kind of works is right now is when you should be getting applications in, you should be getting FAFSA in. And then as we get into December, January, February, that's the scholarship season. The scholarship applications should be getting completed, that sort of thing. Okay? And then we should be talking about a final choice as we get to April. So from the school side, that was this part of the process that you as parents and students are involved with. From the school side, we're involved with making sure the transcripts are completed and sent out. Now, all the seniors have an account with a program called Parchment, because we got together back in August and sat down and made sure they set up those accounts. Parchment is a system, a secure system, by which transcripts are sent automatically, electronically, right from Rockford Lutheran, right to the university that you select. In order for that to happen, your student needs to go into their Parchment account and order where they want their transcripts to be sent. And at this point, that's a free process because the state of Illinois pays for it for you. Okay? So they go into Parchment, order where they want the transcript to be sent, what schools they want it to be sent to, and process that. Parchment sends us a message, we attach the transcript goes out to whatever university you send it to, totally secure, totally confidential, all that sort of thing, and everybody's in good shape. That's how transcripts happen. Now, virtually no one does a paper transcript anymore, just so you're kind of familiar with that. With that is a school profile. We send them information about the school, about our grading scale, about what colleges our students typically attend, what kind of courses they take, and those sorts of things. There's recommendation forms from me. There's other reports that come out later in the year. So, for example, the transcripts that we're sending right now are complete up to the end of junior year. By the time you're done with your semester that we're in right now, some schools are going to want to see this transcript before they make a final decision. So this is where that issue of what your grades are right now is a huge deal. Okay, some people think, oh, okay, it's senior year, I can kind of enjoy myself, take my time, and that sort of thing. Absolutely not. Okay, and they also will request, the school that you choose to attend will also request an 8th semester transcript. That's where the transcript will come after you graduate. And I can tell you, there have been students who got an acceptance to the University of Illinois back in December and thought that they were home free, and so they just decided they were going to enjoy the rest of their senior year. And then when that 8th semester transcript got sent to U of I sent a letter back and said, yeah, maybe not. Okay, that absolutely happens. So don't mess with that. Everything you do, all the way up to the very end, is important. So you have to stay on top of all that. Okay, so the application process from the student side is typically online. So virtually no paperwork involved with that sort of thing anymore. I also took all the seniors into the lab, where we worked on their own computers to set up an account with a common app. The common application is one college application that you can send to about 800 different universities. So they became familiar with what a college application looks like and what the process is for putting that online and that sort of thing. So they've got some experience with that, so this shouldn't be a surprise. But make sure that you get your recommendations in, and if there is an essay, take care of that. There's a fee in many cases, so that's something that needs to go along with it. And then ACT scores. We do include your ACT scores on your transcript. Some colleges see that and they're fine, that's all they need. Some colleges see that and say, no, we want to get the scores when you took the test. In order your scores to be sent to that university. Okay? There is a fee for that. But if you are in a position of being eligible for a free and reduced lunch, and if you're not sure about that sort of thing, connect with me on that. But if that is the case, a lot of universities also then have fee waivers for applications. So come see me about that if you have questions. FERPA is a guideline that basically says now that your student's going to college, now that they're reaching the age of adulthood, that sort of thing, their academic record is theirs. So what that means is legally, they get their grades and parents don't. Now, they as students have the right to sign off and waive that right and allow their grades also to be shared with parents. And my suggestion is if the parents are helping with this college process, the parents deserve to see the grades too. So I counsel the students that yes, you need to sign that off so that your parents can see what's going on in your college experience as well. So, but that's what FERPA is all about. If you do end up with a college essay requirement as a part of your application process, here's just some helpful hints on some things that can help that to turn out to be a good experience. You know, the things that you've done in your English class this year have been done in many cases to prepare you for something like this. So talk to your English teachers about it. You know, they've taught you the process for writing good essays from the time you were in junior high. And that's the same process you use here. That's why they taught you that. So, you know, it's the edit, the proofread, have somebody else proofread, have somebody else edit, all those sorts of things are all part of that process. But these are just some helpful points that you can take a look at and you can do this. We'll talk a little bit about some money aspects now. Here we're talking about these are the costs for a 2-year school, a 4-year in-state school, a 4-year out-of-state school, a 4-year private school. You see there's a difference in prices. The key is, though, nobody pays a sticker price. Okay, buying a college education is much like buying a car. Nobody really pays the sticker price. So how do we deal with that? Fafsa, as I mentioned, the free application for federal student aid is a place where that all starts. The Fafsa.gov is the site where you go to fill that out. If you haven't done that, studentaid.ed.gov provides some other information for you about other types of scholarships and so on. Basically what FAFSA does is it takes a look at what your family income and assets look like and what's college going to cost. What's the shortfall in between in terms of what your family can provide, both the student and the parents, versus the cost of the college. And so from that, you'll kind of get a score that says this is what you're going to be able to pay and then this is what it's going to cost. So what's the difference between those two factors? Now, there's nobody that's going to guarantee that somebody's going to pay that entire difference between those two numbers, but basically, FAFSA sends that numbers to the college. Now the college knows, okay, this is what your family can pay, this is what college is going to cost. Let's now start talking about what sort of scholarships we can apply for, what sort of things we can use to try to make up the difference between those two numbers. Okay, and so that's where studentaid.ed.gov has some resources on different scholarship opportunities. There's a lot of forums over there that talk about some different scholarship opportunities too, some different sites that you can go to. I'll have some more listed here in just a bit as well. Gentlemen, you do need to make sure you're registered for draft, and that's part of the FAFSA process, or can be, because that's a requirement to get scholarships. Your EFC is what your family is expected to be able to contribute to the cost of college. The student aid report is basically a report that you get back that says, this is what your family can contribute, and so, you know, this is what college costs, and so this is what the difference is between those two. Colleges will take a look at that, and then they'll start offering you a financial aid package to make that opportunity work for you. Talk a little bit about two different types of scholarships. Need-based is what we've just been talking about there. This primarily starts from the FAFSA process to determine what family's financial background is and what the cost of college is going to be. The other is merit-based. So this would be everything from drama to art to music to athletics to whatever, grades, all those sorts of things would be considered merit-based types of scholarships. So most schools offer both, and a lot of students get both. So that's, you know, there's all sorts of different aspects of that are unique, obviously, to each individual student, depending on what their interests and abilities are. But a lot of students get scholarships in both categories. Free money, meaning scholarships that you don't have to pay back, or funds that you don't have to pay back. in terms of the scholarships, the merit, and as well as the need-based. And there's grants that are part of that process too. Pell grants would be the primary federal grant, and again, that's solely based on the student's financial need. There are some state grants that we'll talk about a little bit as well, and the key one for us in the state of Illinois is the Illinois MAP grant. Now, one thing I'll mention about that is when you fill out Fafsa, if there's any potential at all that you're going to go to a school in Illinois, when they ask you where you want to go to college or where might you go to college, they'll let you list like 10 different places. Make sure that one of those places is an Illinois school. Even if you're not really sure you're going to go to an Illinois school, just put one of them on there anyway, because that gets you in line for a MAP grant. Okay? If you don't put any Illinois schools on there, then you're not in line for a MAP grant because they're thinking you're not going to Illinois. Okay? The MAP grant is a fairly decent grant, but it's only for Illinois residents who are going to Illinois schools. It's virtually any Illinois school. The thing that you have to be careful of is making sure that you do get that included in your FAFSA, because at some point in time, the MAP grants are going to run out. Sometimes it's before Christmas, sometimes it's closer to Thanksgiving, sometimes it's closer to Valentine's Day. Don't always know. The point is, if you're on your FAFSA, you put down an Illinois school, you're in line for MAP grant. Now, you could put down ISU and then decide to go to Bradley. Doesn't matter. They're both Illinois schools. You were in line for MAP grant, so you still qualify in either case. Okay. So that's if you filled out your FAFSA already and you didn't put an Illinois school on there, just go back into your FAFSA, use your PIN number, that sort of thing, go back into it, add an Illinois school on there, and that'll get you in line for MAP grant. Okay. Make sure you talk to your college financial aid officers about programs and things that are available to them. They're there to help make this whole situation work for you. So, use that as a resource. There's a lot of scholarship searches at places like this. And again, there's resources back there. There's other links that you'll see here that will talk about different opportunities for you as well. So that was state aid, federal aid. Here's the Pell grant that we talked about a little bit before. Again, it depends on income and family situation and that sort of thing. In addition to that, there's work study, which means you get a job at the college and they pay you something and you use that money to help pay for your college. There's also subsidized and unsubsidized loans up to the $5,500 amount. Subsidized means you can take out the loan, it doesn't start accumulating interest until you graduate. So it's kind of like somebody else is subsidizing you, they're like paying the interest on that money until you graduate. Once you graduate, then you start paying back the loan, then you start paying the interest. Okay? And there's loans that just start accumulating interest right away too, unsubsidized loans. There's also loans for parents that COA, getting cost of your education, minus whatever other aid you receive, you can get a loan for that as well. So those are not as advantageous, obviously, as scholarships, because loans, obviously, you have to pay back. Scholarships, you don't. Okay. These are a variety of different sites that are available that deal specifically with scholarships. I'm going to talk about a couple of them in particular. You see some are obviously specific to minority populations. This one here is the Community Foundation of Northern Illinois. They will have an open house, and I'll get information out about this in December, in November, because their open house, their presentation is in December. Community Foundation of Illinois is kind of like a collection of hundreds of different scholarship opportunities for students. And these are only for students that are here in Northern Illinois, like most of them are Boone, Winnebago, Ogle County, that kind of thing. And some of them are very specific scholarships. They're for certain people of a certain ethnicity or race, or they're for students of a certain, that are going to a certain university, or they're for students that are studying a certain major, and so on. In some cases, they're for students from a certain community, like I think there's one scholarship that's just for kids from Durant. Okay, it's not going to be highly competitive in that case, but that's the advantage of any of these scholarships from the Community Foundation is you're not competing against the whole world for these, you're just competing against the people in Rockford. And in many cases, there's 10, wanting to apply for some of these scholarships. So you've got good chances of getting them. Now, they're not full rides, but, you know, 2,000 here, 4,000 there, it all adds up. And we do have a number of students to get that. So be looking for that. That's a site you can go to now and take a look at what they have on there. But there'll be more information coming out about that. Again, it comes up starting in December, because that's when the scholarship season kind of gets kicked off. Some other scholarships here that are specific to our community. I want to mention particularly the RAM scholarship. This really is my favorite, because this one, I think, it's just a great organization. The Rockford Association of Minority Management has a scholarship program that recognizes any African American student that's got a 2.75 or above can apply. They have a really great application process for students to go through that includes an interview. And that's one of the things I think is really cool about this, because it provides an opportunity for those students to have the experience of sitting down in front of another professional and being interviewed. That's going to happen to all of us at some point in our lives. And wow, isn't it great if you've got practice before it happens when you're trying to get your first job. And so that, I think, is one of the coolest things about RAM. It's a great organization, some great people who do some great things. So absolutely encourage you to look at that. So that's their site. It's I printed off one copy. They've got a scholarship that's specific to RAM, and they usually give out 20, 25 of these a year. Again, they're not huge scholarships, but every little bit helps. There's also one, if you're interested in going in the fire department, that the Rockford Fire Department does in conjunction with RAM. That's pretty generous as well. So just go to that site, and you can find those. But really encourage you guys to apply for that, because the process of just going through the application for the RAM scholarship is a growing experience. So I really encourage you to do that. Some other scholarship funds here, again, the website that you can use there. I want to talk a little bit about historically black college universities as well, because these are schools that are going to be great opportunities for some of your students to consider. And I know Ms. Williams has a lot more experience at talking with kids about those sorts of things than I do. So if you want to chime in here, if you want to talk when we get to the end, whatever's good for you.
Yeah, I know a lot of students do have a desire to go to Hbcu school, and a lot of times when that does happen, they like how to submit applications. The great thing about the Hbcus, they do have an Hbcu Common app. So you can Google Hbcu Common app, and it allows you, I think, to apply to 53 different Hbcus, which I think is an awesome thing. Also, I know that a lot of students, sometimes we all have our schools that we really want to get into. We all have our dreams, let's say that's a Morehouse or they're a Spelman. Sometimes we always don't have the grades that match that. What I highly suggest for students is to there's three categories when it comes to selecting your school. You have your safety school, you have your target school, and you have your reach school. So your safety school is that school, hey, I know exactly I can get into this college. I know I meet all the requirements, I won't have an issue getting in. My target school is that school that's a 50-50 chance. 50-50 chance I could possibly get in, and I could possibly not get in. And then my reach school is that I don't meet any of the admission requirements, but I'm going to go for it anyways. I think it's very important that you kind of break it down to those three different categories, because then you don't set yourself up for failure, but you also have those three schools and leaving yourself some type of options. The great thing with a lot of the Hbcus, if you don't have the high GPAs, if you don't have the high ACT scores, they do look at your overall application as a whole. So I think it's very important just to explore those different options when it comes to the Hbcus, and also look into the Common app that they do have. I think it's 53 different schools that you can submit, just like you submit the Rockford Common app. You can submit all to those different Hbcu schools at one time. A lot of those schools are out of state, but there's even special admit programs for in-state schools. NIU has a special admit, so let's say you don't meet the regular admission requirements. They have a special admit program. SIU also have a special admit program. So let's say I don't have that ACT, I don't have that GPA, but I still want to have a shot at some of these state schools, and they do have special admit programs that they look for, that they pass on to the students. He also has Lincoln College up there. I know a lot of us who want to go to the large institutions, the 30,000 students schools. sometimes that's not best for all of us. I mean, I think it's to come from Rockford Lutheran, sometimes you may be used to the smaller classroom sizes. Transition over to a school where they have 150, 200 kids in a class, you don't know your professor at all, may be difficult. Lincoln College, I believe, is a great option. They offer 2-year programs as well as 4-year programs. They're located right in central Illinois, roughly around 2 hours from here. When I say they have one of the best programs when it comes to student development, when they really care about their students, when they really care about engaging their students, as well as their students being successful. So even though it's only a school of 1,000 kids, it's a super diverse school. You get a lot of students from the Chicago area, you get from this area, as well as from central Illinois. So it's a very diverse school, but your classroom sizes are still pretty small, so you may only have 20 kids in the class. So it's very familiar to kind of what you guys are used to here at Rockford Lutheran. So I really would say don't just X out one type of school, but really look into all your options and really take onto that safety, that target, and that reach school to kind of set you up. You just don't want to set yourself up for failure. But I know a lot of the HBCU schools do have, sometimes with the lower admission requirements, I don't have the ACT score, but I have the GPA. So keep your options open when it comes to that, but really don't forget about the state school that also has special admit programs. And I do know a lot of the college recruiters. I was a college recruiter for 2 years. So Mr. Course can give you my information if you want to talk more. I can definitely talk more about the whole target and the reach and the safety school so you get a general idea. It's not too late, but you definitely, like Mr. Course said, you kind of want to jump on it now. But there are options, all types of options, small, large, medium schools, depending on your need. But it's very important that you know yourself as a student and that you know what can handle. So your friend may be going to this school, but what may work for your friend may not work for you. HBCUs may work for one group, they may not work for another group. So kind of knowing yourself as a student, but really being realistic on where can I see myself. You can still have that dream school, but also keep it in my safety school, my target school, so you leave yourself more options.
Thank you. Realize too that when you're talking to a lot of schools, and this is one of the process that our school profile comes in, and the communication that I send to colleges and universities, they can look at our school profile and realize, okay, this is a little bit different kind of school. So yeah, your ACT might not be what you want it to be, and your GPA might not be quite what you want it to be, but they can also tell by knowing a little bit more about our school that you went to a place where there were some pretty decent expectations of you. And so that kind of background, that kind of experience, a lot of schools will put some significant merit in that and say, okay, the numbers might not look good, but I know something about the school that this person went to. And again, if they're looking at you in terms of the whole total picture and seeing the kind of involvement that you had in school, the involvement you had in sports or arts or whatever, that's going to be another factor. It's going to say, okay, yeah, this student, there's more to this student than what shows up in this ACT score, this GPA. So yeah, we'd like to have that student here because that's the kind of student we want to have be a part of our culture, our community. So think about that too, that those advantages of what you've experienced here are helpful to you as we're talking about some of these types of admission programs that otherwise wouldn't work for you. As examples of some of the other types of alternative entry and acceptance programs, these are some that I just Googled and included here. This is for ISU, a special program that they have for students, and who you can contact and that sort of thing. It's an ISU. Here's a special program that Western has for Northern teachers in particular, extra scholarship awards, that sort of thing. A lot of schools have programs like this, and some are for roles of the teachers. There's a particular orientation program that Western offers for incoming freshman students and so on. A lot of private colleges and universities offer that sort of thing too. Here's a program at Lincoln College in Iowa that accomplishes much the same sort of thing. Here's that common app that Ms. Williams was referring to there. So that's a websites that are helpful to that. And again, you'll be able to access this off of our school website too. Some of these are sites that I've got on Counselor's Corner, Big Future, College Board, Quick Start, have to do a lot with figuring out what you want to major in, what you want to study. Fast Web has to do a lot with scholarships. green light is focused particularly on students that are going to be first generation students in a college experience. The Into Careers, Illinois Career Information System is something, again, they can use for college searches. A lot of these your students are familiar with, as I've talked with them about it the last couple of years. These are sites that are on the school counselor's corner website that they can find. That's referenced here as well. We put a lot of information about scholarships on the Rockford Lutheran Guidance Office Facebook page. In addition to what I was talking about at Rock Valley and what I was talking about with Northern Illinois Community Foundation, a lot of other people, a lot of other organizations just send us scholarship information. I don't really have a good way to get that out to everybody other than electronically. So I really encourage you to go on the Rockford Lutheran Guidance Office Facebook page, because that's where we post all kinds of stuff. Right now, that stuff's starting to trickle in. That's going to be where we post things as they come across my desk. So in the next 2-3 months, we'll just keep posting stuff there. We've got scholarships posted there by the dozens that, again, are primarily for organizations and institutions just in our area, in our community. So some good chances of being able to get some of those scholarships and so on. So I encourage you to take a look at that. And then Remind is a system that I use with the students to connect with them about things like the Community Foundation when they have their scholarship night. I'll put that on Remind and send that out, that sort of thing. So if you're interested, you can sign up for that as parents. You can get on there too. I'll send all sorts of other notes about testing and those sorts of things. But that's all up to you if you want to participate in that. Okay, that's everything I had. Questions that we can get to, things that we didn't cover that you'd like to know a little bit more about. I mentioned a couple other handouts that I didn't mention. Financial aid primer goes through a lot of the terminology of what's in the financial aid process, and that sort of thing. And I do have, if you haven't done Fafsa yet, there's a Fafsa worksheet over there. You can't do Fafsa on paper, you have to do it online. But if you want to get it ready before you go online and do it, this has all the FAFSA questions on it. You can fill this out ahead of time, and it's out on your computer, just going to plug it all in, that kind of thing. So those are back there too. Other questions that would be helpful? Claudia, do you have some things you'd like to share with us a little bit about what we're talking about here today?
Yeah, so hello everyone, my name is Claudia Consuelos and I work for Rock Valley College. I'm a coordinator of new student enrollment. What that means is that I do work close with Rockford Lutheran and the community to kind of help to spread awareness about Rock Valley, what programs we offer, if it is the right fit for you or your student. And then I also help them throughout their first semester of college, so from anywhere from helping them apply to registering to classes to actually checking up on them during their first semester, making sure everything's okay. A little bit about myself. So I'm from Rockford. I went to private school, not Rockford Lutheran, but another private school here in Rockford. And then I did start my college career at Rock Valley. From just certain situations that arose, I was all set to go to a 4-year, but life happened and I decided to stay for 2 years. Because actually, for me, it was the best decision in my life because it really did help me start my college career. I'm not certain if I would have been as successful had I gone straight to a 4-year, but everyone does have different needs. So then from there, I went to Illinois State University and I got my bachelor's, and I actually loved Rock Valley so much, I came back and I got a job offer from them, so here I am. One thing I like to mention is that, number one, I am here to help anyone, and we are a community college, so we don't just cater to our students, we cater to the whole community. One event coming up is our financial aid night, where we actually do sit down with you and fill out the Fafsa if you haven't done so already. Or let's say you did do it, but you just want someone to look over it, make sure that you did it correctly and to the best of your ability. That is coming up November 12th, so next Tuesday from 5:30 to 8 p.m. It is in our student center, so as soon as you walk in, there should be someone there to greet you and take you to the correct person. We do have interpreters if needed, and you can ask us any questions. They are all geniuses and can answer anything. And then if you have any questions, I'll stick around to answer any of that or answer questions right now too.
Questions anybody has for Claudia for Tara.
Could you give us a little insight on your experience with HBCUs? Because I find out a lot of people in the Midwest, because there's not a lot of HBCUs in this area, they really don't comprehend the benefits or the experience of it attending an HBCU.
So I didn't attend an HBCU, but I worked a lot directly hand in hand with the HBCUs. I think it depends on the individual student. I mean, I think sometimes you get those students who want more, a little bit less of a diverse experience. They want to kind of be around those who they can relate to a little bit more. So I do think it depends on the individual. I do think a lot of stuff that you could benefit from an HBCU, just the student population is much different. The agendas are much different from an HBCU. I think that at the end of the day, all college is the same. You kind of can go to a 4-year, you can get this, you get the same experience, but it all depends on the individual, what they're looking for. I mean, you do get the more historical black, ethno-black, you get more of the Greek life. You get more of the marching band. So I think more of the out-of-classroom experience is what's much different at an HBCU than what it is at, let's say, a state school. So let's say at SIUC and let's say at Alabama A&M. What you get at the out-of-classroom experience is much different because you see people who look just like you. You see those opportunities that you possibly wouldn't see at a school that's downstate. So I do think it's all up to the individual, but the out-of-camp student life is what's the difference. The classroom, I think their agenda is all the same, but what you get at the HBCU out of the classroom experience is what's different. I don't believe that HBCU is for every student. I think it depends on the student. So I highly recommend that students take the opportunity to go, if you're trying to explore the option of HBCU, take the opportunity to go visit an HBCU. And then take the opportunity to go visit a school that's a PWI, predominantly white institution. So you can kind of get both. I went to SIUC, and we had a very high minority population at SIUC, so even though I didn't go to HBCU, I still felt I still had kind of that experience. But I really do think it's up to the individual and what they're looking for in their college experience. I know, if you guys Google it, in Chicago, they're actually having an HBCU Expo, where all the HBCU colleges are getting together to kind of do like a college fair. I'm not sure if it took place this week or last week, but in Chicago, they do have an HBCU college fair that's taking place. So if you just Google HBCU college fair, I think the AKAs are the ones who's putting it on. But I do believe each individual student needs to write out, what am I looking for in a college? And then once they can figure out what they're looking for in a college, then they kind of can narrow it down from there, which college works best for me. You do get some predominantly white institutions where you don't have a huge minority population. And some students want that. But there's also other schools out there that's not HBCU. State schools, you can still get that as well.
Good question. Any others? Just want to revisit quickly what Ms. Williams mentioned relative to the different levels of school, the REACH school, the target school, the safety school, that sort of thing. You know, there's a place for all of your students, okay? There's a place and there's different price ranges. There's things out there that we can make work, okay? And again, that's why I'm really thankful for a place like Rock Valley, because if your ACT and your GPA is not quite what you want it to be, Rock Valley is a great place to go to get a start and to prove to someone else, I can handle college, okay? And so after a couple years of Rock Valley, you've got a better looking GPA, and your GPA is college experience. Now when you start taking a look at another school and looking to transfer, they're going to look at those scores, they're going to look at those classes at Rock Valley and use that to judge, okay, what is this student's capability of finishing up at ISU or at Northern, et cetera. So that could be a great alternative if other avenues don't look like they're going to work out for one reason or another. That's definitely viable. And as we mentioned, we work very closely with Claudia in the whole process. By the time, if your student's interested in Rock Valley, we'll take them over there as a group. As we have a day already scheduled. We'll go over there and they'll get signed into their system. They'll get their accounts all set up and that sort of thing. We'll do a tour. They'll talk financial aid. They'll talk about programs, all that sort of thing. And then, like a week or two later, then Claudia and her team will come here, and they'll actually sit down with those students one-on-one, and they'll actually schedule for classes. So by the time your student is done with that process, and the thing that I tell your kid, you know what, the only thing that's left to do is for you to pay the tuition in Rock Valley. I'm not doing that part, okay? I'll do everything else. We'll get you through every other part. You'll be signed up, you'll have your classes set, you'll be registered, you'll be set to go. The only thing literally would be left to start Rock Valley, and we just take care of the tuition part. And I can help you with that because I've got the information about the scholarships at the foundation and so on. But that's one great opportunity, one great way to get things started if it looks like that's the best thing that's going to work for you. And that can take you all sorts of other places from that.
And it really can, because the great thing about it, if you say, hey, I have my reach school I just can't get into right now. If you go to Rock Valley for 2 years, get your associate's degree, your grades don't transfer, your degree transfers over. So they're not going to look at your ACT score so much. They're going to look at what you actually did at Rock Valley because you have an associate's degree. So you don't have to worry about picking and choosing which classes are going to transfer over because your whole degree is going to transfer over versus classes. Now, if you go to Rock Valley, you don't, and you transfer out before then, they can pick and choose which classes are going to work. But if you go to Rock Valley for the 2 years, you gain your associate's degree. Your degree is what transfers over and not the classes. So if you're saying, hey, I really have that school I really want to go to, I can't get into that school at the moment, there's nothing wrong with going to Rock Valley, to get that associate's degree. Now your associate's degree is the one that's transferring over, and you still have the 2 to 3 years, how long it takes you to complete at a 4 year. So you still get that 4-year experience, just a little later, but you can also still be super involved on Rock Valley campus because that also looks good when you get ready to transfer, and they have some awesome transfer scholarships as well.
Okay, well, thanks for coming tonight. We're going to be hanging around here a while if you have some other questions. I encourage you to fill out the little half sheet there that gives me some idea of some things that we can do to improve the program. But feel free to get questions answered. Make sure you guys have handouts there that are helpful to you. And you always know where to find me, so be in touch and ask some questions. And, we talked about the remind thing. You guys should have got a remind thing about the Fafsa completion at Rock Valley. You guys get it today? Okay, you should have. All right, so that's how we'll communicate that kind of stuff. Thank you. You can just leave these on the chairs too, if you'd like to. Thank you.
Thanks so much, appreciate it.
You bet.